Any situation involving equines and livestock is going to be dynamic, it's going to be unpredictable, there's going to be a lot of risk involved. So our goal is keeping you safe. These horses are a lot more aware of their situation than you are. They've got keener senses and more senses. So you have to be thinking like they do. What else is happening in this scenario? What's going on around them that could cause things to change? Right now, we've got 2 happy horses. They're loose. You need to get them out of this location to a contained place where they are safe and out of harm's way, and you have a safe incident. So right now you've got a couple of horses who are happy. They are relaxed. They probably know what else is going on. You've got vehicles there. You've got a lot of personnel moving around. This is the rest of the incident location. Now we've got resources moving into the scene. What's going to happen next? You're going to stop, get all your personnel together, do a size up, figure out what materials you might have that you can deploy to get these animals moved, contained, and safe. So where'd that other horse go? We talked about horses being copycats. One horse rolled, so the other horse wants to roll. We got horse number 2 in his happy place. He's probably not worried at all about where all those vehicles are and all the personnel. He's going to stand up, have a look around. But where is horse number 2? And are you and your personnel in a safe place where you can see and assess everything happening in this scene? Where is that second horse? Boom. Now watch what happens. We went from having a calm, relaxed scene where a horse is having a roll to a second horse charging into the scene, getting horse number 1 really cranked up. And now we've got 2 horses running around. So we've got to go back to square one, try to get everybody to calm down, get that scene stabilized. And how we are going to do that is not apply pressure. We're going to create a human barrier here. We're going to get our personnel together with our safety tape or our webbing, and off at the far left, outside the field of your vision right now, we've got a couple of personnel holding up some snow fencing. We're going to use that material as a device to contain these animals in a few minutes, but right now we're going to use humans and safety tape or webbing to create a fence, a human fence. Horses are accustomed to responding to a fence, and they're also accustomed to people making themselves look a little bit bigger than they are. So how are we going to do it? We're looking at this line of personnel, starting from the right and working to the left. We have a firefighter on the right, and he's not very effective. His body language and his position are pretty relaxed. His hands are down to his side. He's holding the tape, but he's not really using it in an effective manner. In between officer on the right and the officer to his left, that safety tape is drooping. So A, it's not effective, and B, it could also be a trip hazard. Now, we've got the officer to his left. This person is using a really effective stance. His arms are out to his side. That's a stance that horses recognize. And he's also holding that tape in a way that makes it very visible and gives it the feeling of being a fence. The person to his left is doing an equally good job. Those 2 officers together are creating a really effective barrier. Now, moving further down the line, we have officer number 4. Officer number 4 is in a really dangerous position. Why? Because he has got his rope or safety tape or webbing in front of him instead of behind him. That puts him at risk. If that animal runs through that barrier, he could be knocked over, he could be injured, he could trip. With that tape or that webbing behind him, he's able to drop it and let the animal run through. So, right to left, officer number 1, not very effective. Officer number 2 and officer number 3, perfect position. Officer number 4, creating a danger and a hazard for himself and others. So, again, stop, size that situation up, make sure that everybody is in a safe position with their resources exactly where they need to be. And now we're going to start trying to move these animals and get them into a sense of containment, start getting them confined, and we're going to do that by applying a little bit of pressure. As we do, we need to be mindful at all times of how these animals are going to respond to your presence and how much pressure is enough and when it becomes too much. So let's start this human fence moving toward the animals and see what happens. Our human fence is now advancing. The IC should be giving a count, and everybody should be moving as a cohesive unit. Now we're moving a little bit fast here. We need to start slowing down as these horses start to pay more attention to the fact that there is a barrier approaching them. So we've got horses that were calm, they were feeding, and now we've got a little more agitation. They're responding to the resources who are now advancing on them and forcing them into a more confined location. So we move forward, we stop. We want to make sure that these horses do not feel threatened. Remember, horses are prey animals. So horse looking at us, that's a good thing. This horse is open, he's interested, he's curious. Watch what happened. Horse number 2 followed horse number 1. And they're approaching us. They feel secure. They're looking at the personnel as calm leaders. They are now the herd leaders. So everybody is calm. We can start putting a little bit more pressure on them. We also want to keep in mind that the material we're using is dynamic. It's going to react to other elements in the scene. In this case, probably the wind. So we're using safety tape right here, and it's going to flap in the wind. It's going to move. The horses are going to see that. We need to keep in mind that that could be something that is a little scary or spooky to them. Right now, these horses are pretty calm. They're responding more to the people than to the materials. But you've noticed that they stopped eating. Now we have a horse who's becoming a little more agitated. That activity is called milling. When equines and livestock start to move around together or individually, but in a circular motion, that activity is milling, and it's a sign of anxiety. Now we've got things calmed down. Everybody's stopped. Horses are calm. Situation is back under control. Now we can start applying a little more pressure. We're going to use that snow fencing on the far left to create a little bit more solid barrier. But the trick in using snow fencing or a similar material is that it's going to be harder to control. So again, situational awareness is key here. Are we as alert and aware as those horses to what's happening? What do you think is going on right now? We've got horses eating. That's a good sign. People are very still. The IC is now asking everyone to advance very slowly, very cautiously, very little pressure. Now again, those horses are really paying attention. We've got someone in the front holding her hands up. Those horses stopped and responded to that. That's a visual barrier. Now we're moving in very slowly, applying a little bit more pressure. We want to see if we can get those horses to start moving the direction that we want them to go, meaning away from the road on the left into the open space or the pasture off to our right. So we're going to use that snow fencing to push a little bit closer to that corner. And now let's watch what happens. We've got really calm horses. They obviously know where we are. Someone's turning around to look at us. But we need to be really, really careful. Horses are not seeing directly behind them. They're turning their heads to the left and right to make sure they know where we are. But as long as those horses are eating, they're still feeling pretty comfortable. They're not threatened by us, so we can keep moving forward. We have a really relaxed situation right here. The horses are where we want them. They're eating. They don't perceive the personnel to be a threat. But watch how fast things can change. We go from a calm, controlled situation to an explosive one in an instant. Wow, what just happened? Let's take a closer look at this incident to see if we can't figure out what caused the scene to change from becoming a calm, happy one with horses who are happily grazing and don't perceive anything around them to be a threat, to an explosive situation. And how do we keep everybody in the scene safe? Let's take a look. We've got people on the right creating a human fence using themselves, their arms, and some safety tape. We've got personnel on the left, and they're using snow fencing to create a partial enclosure and a corral. Now, these horses are a little bit agitated because they're feeling a little bit more contained, but they're still calm. Something happened. The wind picked up the snow fence, causing it to flap, and those horses took off like a bomb. The people on the right-hand side dropped their safety tape, stepped aside, and created an opening through which those horses could run safely, unimpeded, and without knocking anybody over. Created an opening. You can always catch the horses again, but you can't replace injured personnel so quickly. So we want to keep everyone safe. We need to be absolutely aware of everything that could be going on, whether it's wind, sirens, other vehicles, a helicopter overhead, or just someone sneezing. Those horses are going to be keenly aware of everything in that environment, and the IC's role is to keep everybody safe.